Hey guys, welcome back to Simon Says DIY. Today I'm going to be making this handmade leather pouch for a good friend of mine. Now to get started, I need to cut out the leather at the plan that I've already designed. Now I have this plan available on my Patreon page. If you guys are interested in this, go check out my Patreon page. I have all of my plans on my channel available to my Patrons and my supporters there. So if you're interested, go check that out and consider becoming a Patreon. Also, there's a lot of really cool perks that I'm offering to my Patrons, as well as a lot of really cool branded items that will be given away to every Patreon. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon page, go down to the description below. I'll leave the link there. Now that's enough of my Patreon page. I'll get back to the project, and I've already cut out the outline, the rough outline of the leather that I need. Now I'm going to come back in with a straight edge and cut the edges perfect and make sure they're exactly where I want them to be. Now I've got the straight edges cut perfectly square. Now I want to round over the corners. I don't want square corners, I need them rounded. So I'm going to be using a guide for this. You can grab any round metal objects to do this. It will help guide the blade around the edge and make a perfectly curved edge on it. Next, I need to cut out the center hole for the zipper. This will be where I install the zipper and where the leather is going to be folding in half, creating the pouch. Now, you can use a straight edge on the straight pieces, and I'm actually going to use a round punch to cut out the ends perfectly round, but if you want, you can easily do this freehand, cutting around with a razor blade instead. Now you can see the center hole is cut out now, and I fold it in half. You can see where the zipper is going to go, but around the outside I need to stitch the two halves together. So I'm going to be cutting a groove around the outside as a guide for punching the holes to thread these together, as well as a groove that the stitching will set down into and sort of hide it below the leather line. Now that the groove has been cut, I'm going to start punching the holes for stitching later on. Now I'm only going to be punching the holes for half of this leather piece. It's going to be folded in half later, glued together, and then I'll actually transfer those holes to the other side as well, and then I can start stitching. I don't want to punch the holes through the whole thing, because once I fold it in half, it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to line up all those holes in the same spot in order to thread it together. Next, I need to prep the hole where the zipper is going to be stitched to the leather. So I'll first cut the groove around the outside, and then I need to go around and punch the holes in order to mount that. But before I punch the holes, I'm going to cut and glue the zipper to the leather first. That way everything is laid out exactly where it needs to go before I start punching holes. My little helper saw me working and wondered what I was doing and wanted to come over and help. It's a monkey, yeah.
Oh, glue, she's saying.
Monkey glue? Yeah. Now, once I have the zipper cut, I'm actually going to glue down one side of the fabric on the zipper first, let that dry a bit, and then I'll glue the other side and clamp it to let it dry completely. The glue that I'm using is clear Gorilla Glue. It's basically equivalent to rubber cement. It's very flexible once it dries. It bonds really well with fabrics and leather, and it will bend as needed with the leather instead of breaking and falling apart. So this stuff's great for working with leather, bonding things together temporarily before you stitch it, but it also adds a lot of strength afterwards as well, keeping everything together like it's supposed to be. Now I'll clamp this down and let it sit for about an hour, and then I'll come back and start stitching this up. Now the glue's dry, I'm going to start punching the holes that I need to stitch around the zipper. Now I'm going to be stitching both sides, running through the leather into the material on the back where the zipper is glued to the leather. Now the stitch style I'm using for this is a saddle stitch. Basically use 2 threads and 2 needles, and you'll run the 2 threads and needles through opposite directions through each hole. So as one's going in, the other one's coming out at the same time, and you do that through every hole around this opening. So instead of running 2 needles at the same time, I feel like I need 4 hands to do that. I'm actually going to run 1 needle all the way down the side, skipping every hole in and out, and then I'll come back with the other one, filling in those gaps, finishing the saddle stitch. Now this technically isn't the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to run both needles and thread at the same time. That's a little bit more than I can handle right now, and I'm not quite coordinated enough, but maybe with a little more practice I'll be able to do it. Now the stitching around the zipper is just about finished up. Once I get to the same place I started, I have some thread left over that I need to knot those 2 pieces of thread together, and I'll melt that with the lighter so that they can't come unraveled. Once that thread has been melted down a little bit, I like taking a piece of metal, and you can press down on that knot and it'll actually flatten it down and smooth it out to where it looks nice and doesn't stick out from the leather. Now the zipper's done, works great. I'm going to move on to stitching the pouch together now. Now before I can start stitching, I'm going to glue this down first so that everything stays in place. So I'm going to put a bead of this rubber cement or Gorilla Glue around the outside of this pouch. I'll then put several clamps on this to hold it in place and hold it tight while it dries. Once I leave it for about an hour, I'll come back and I'll keep on working. Now the glue has dried enough to start punching the holes for the stitching. Now I've already punched one side, so that's already my guide. All I need to do is put the punch in the same holes as before and just cut through the last layer on the back. Now it's time to start stitching up the pouch finally, and to get started I need to cut the thread to the right length. Now sometimes it's hard to tell how long you need the thread to be, but a trick that I like to use is to just double the length that you're going to be stitching. So I'll run it around the first time, come back the other way, and that will give me double the length of the line of stitching that I'm going to be using. And that will get it pretty close, so if you want to leave a couple inches extra past that point just to be safe, that should do just fine. So once I get the first one cut, I need 2 identical threads, and I'll cut the second one, and then I can start threading it with the needles. Now again, to end the stitching, I'm going to knot the 2 threads together. I'll melt them again with the lighter and smooth it out. Now with some of the scrap pieces of leather, I'm going to cut a small leather tab to go on the end of the zipper. This will give it just a little bit easier grip to pull the zipper open and close, and I think it will add a nice touch as well. Now the pouch is basically done. I'm just going to round over the corners, making them a little smoother, and I'll also condition the leather and seal it before it's finished. As soon as I walked away, Gemma got a hold of the project and started working on it as well. Now I'm also going to be smoothing out the edges using a wood burnisher. It just smooths out the 2 pieces of leather that have been stitched together, evens that up, and makes it look a lot more natural. I'm going to add some conditioner and sealer to the leather so that it will repel moisture as well as condition it and preserve it for long term. I'm just going to use a paper towel and rub this into the leather and let it soak in and wipe off any excess. Alright guys, that just about finishes up my video for today, and the pouch is just about done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more leatherworking projects, I have some more. You can check those out at the end of this video, or go check out my leatherworking playlist on my channel. I explain a lot more into what I'm doing with the stitching and the different tools I'm using on different projects, so go check those out and see what those have. And also, like I mentioned before, if you're interested in the plans for this project, go check out my Patreon page and consider becoming a supporter or Patreon of the channel. You'll get access to all of my plans that I've drawn up, as well as some really cool merchandise that I'm going to be giving away to my Patreon. So hope to see you guys there. Alright guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you have not already, and if you want to make sure YouTube lets you know that I upload a new video and when that is each week, hit that subscribe button as well as that bell icon right below, and that will send you a notification when I upload a new video. Also, don't forget to hit that like button down below if you like this video, and as always, leave any comments or suggestions down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.